In professional football, every team carries their own story. Some are stories of dynasties, some of futility, and then there are the Tennessee Titans. A franchise defined not by irrelevance, not by dominance, but by being painfully close. From the days of the Houston Oilers to the modern Titans, the story has always been the same. Glory within reach, heartbreak at the finish. This is the 1 yard short experience. We begin our story in 1960, when oil tycoon Bud Adams founded the Houston Oilers as a charter member of the new American Football League. Right out of the gate, the Oilers made history, winning the first 2 AFL championships behind quarterback George Blanda. It looked like the start of a powerhouse. But after those titles, the success faded. The Oilers became less known for trophies and more for turmoil. In the 1970s, while teams like the Steelers and Dolphins were building dynasties, Houston was sinking into mediocrity. Rivalries were forged early, especially with the Pittsburgh Steelers, whose physical style set the standard in the AFC. The Oilers were always chasing them, but always on the wrong end of the measuring stick. Hope finally returned in the late 70s when Bum Phillips arrived and when the Oilers drafted running back Earl Campbell. Campbell wasn't just a star, he was a force of nature, something that the NFL had not seen since the days of Jim Brown. His bruising running style powered the Oilers back to relevance and gave birth to Love You Blue, one of the most passionate fan movements the NFL has ever seen. But even Campbell's greatness couldn't overcome the shadow of the steel curtain. In back-to-back AFC championship games in 78 and 79, the Oilers fell to the Steelers. Fans still to this day argue about Mike Renfro's disallowed touchdown in the 79 title game, a call many say robbed Houston of a trip to the Super Bowl. Once again, the Oilers were close, but not there. The 1980s were a lost decade for the Oilers. Despite having talent like Warren Moon in the latter half of the decade, dysfunction and bad ownership decisions defined the Oilers. Coaching changes, roster management, and empty seats became the norm. While other franchises built continuity, the Oilers spun their wheels. By the early 90s, the Oilers were officially in the spotlight, led by Hall of Fame quarterback Warren Moon and the high-powered run-and-shoot offense. This unit was coached by Kevin Kilbride, or as some know him, Kevin Kildrive. Houston had talent absolutely everywhere. Receivers Ernest Givens, Haywood Jeffries, Curtis Duncan, and Drew Hill. And the defense was absolutely amazing, coached by Buddy Ryan. They were anchored by amazing pass rushers like Sean Jones and Al Smith. But with all that talent came dysfunction. Infighting and egos plagued the team. During one infamous game in 1993, defensive coordinator Buddy Ryan punched OC Kevin Kilbride on the sidelines on live television in front of a stunned audience. That was the perfect symbol of the Oilers. Talented enough to win, but too self-destructive to win it all. And then came the single most infamous collapse in NFL history. January 3rd, 1993. The Oilers led the Buffalo Bills 35-3 in the AFC wildcard. The game was over, until it wasn't. Frank Reich led the Buffalo Bills to a 41-38 overtime victory in what is simply known as the comeback. For Oilers fans, it's trauma that still to this day has never healed. This was a very interesting team. If you want to know more about it, Urinating Tree has a video that's a lot more detailed about it. I'll leave a link to it in the description. By 1996, Bud Adams had had enough of Houston. Attendance was poor, the city refused to build a new stadium, and Adams made the decision to move his team to Tennessee. The Houston Oilers were no more. After spending 2 seasons in limbo as the Tennessee Oilers, the franchise knew that they just had to get rid of that awful taste that was still in their mouth from the Houston regime. That regime was full of disappointment. The franchise would rebrand in 1999 as the Tennessee Titans. That same year, in their very first season with the new name Titans, they authored 2 of the most iconic moments in NFL history. These 2 moments, though, would be on very opposite ends of the totem pole. In the wild card round against Buffalo, Bills players were already celebrating. They thought they had had the game won. Until the kickoff, Frank Wycheck lateraled to Kevin Dyson, who sprinted 75 yards for the game-winning touchdown. Redemption against the same franchise that had haunted them years before. This team was a team of destiny. The Oiler curse was no more. This was the team that was going to do it. These are the Titans. They made it all the way to the Super Bowl, facing the St. Louis Rams' greatest show on turf, with Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk. The team was down by a touchdown, but had the ball their last job. Steve McNair led a furious final drive, and with one last play, Kevin Dyson stretched for the goal line and came up 1 yard short. 1 play away from immortality. 1 yard short. The moment that would define the entire franchise. The team would still go on to rebound, though, in the early 2000s. Rivalries took the center stage here. The Titans and Ravens developed one of the NFL's most vicious feuds. Eddie George and Ray Lewis hated each other, clashing in brutal playoff battles. Every hit felt personal. At the same time, Tennessee often ran into another brick wall, Peyton Manning, who owned the AFC South for over a decade. The Titans remained competitive through most of the 2000s, early on with stars like McNair and Eddie George still there, then later on with Chris Johnson and Keith Bulluck leading the way. In 2008, Tennessee went 13-3 and secured the #1 seed, only to lose their very first playoff game to the freaking Ravens. Once again, close, but not close enough. And to make matters worse, in 2009, a horrible tragedy struck. Steve McNair, the Warrior quarterback who had carried the franchise for a decade, was murdered in cold blood in Nashville. The Titans fans mourn not just a player, but the heart and soul of their franchise. The 2010s were defined by inconsistency. The Titans cycled through coaches and quarterbacks, struggling to find stability. Chris Johnson gave the fans the electrifying 2,000-yard season in 2009, but the wins were rare. In 2016, the Titans drafted running back Derrick Henry out of Alabama. At first, he played behind veteran DeMarco Murray. The Titans finished 9-7, which was a respectable step forward after years of irrelevance. But Henry's potential was clear. A 6'3", 247-pound back who looked like a linebacker but ran like a sprinter was just something that you very rarely, if ever, see. By 2017, Henry flashed even more potential. The Titans went 9-7 again, but this time made the playoffs. In the wild card round against Kansas City, Henry powered a second half comeback with 156 yards rushing, shocking the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Tennessee's run ended against the Patriots the next week, but fans saw the future. Derrick Henry was special. 2018 was a transition year. Mike Vrabel was hired as head coach, and Marcus Mariota's struggles at quarterback continued. Henry started the season off slow and even started losing carries to Dion Lewis. Trade talks even started, but in December, he ran angry and erupted against the Jaguars. He ripped off a 99-yard touchdown run, tying Tony Dorsett for the longest in NFL history. This was the true beginning of the King Henry era. 2019 was the season that defined Henry. Ryan Tannehill replaced Mariota at quarterback midseason, and the offense came alive. Henry won the rushing title with 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns, but his biggest moments came in the playoffs. In the wild card round, the Titans stunned the football world. They went into Foxborough and eliminated Tom Brady in what would be his final game as a Patriot. King Henry carried the ball 34 times for 182 yards on his birthday. He was unstoppable. And if that win wasn't impressive enough, a week later in Baltimore against the 14-2 Ravens, led by MVP Lamar Jackson, Henry ran for 195 yards and even threw a jump pass touchdown to Corey Davis. The Titans won 28-12 in one of the biggest upsets of the decade. Suddenly, Tennessee was in the AFC Championship. That win renewed the Baltimore rivalry, by the way. But once again, it ended short of the ultimate goal. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were just too much, and the Titans' magical run fell once again one step shy of the Super Bowl. The team still had plenty of promise though. Henry and Tannehill are both locked up for the future, and rookie A.J. Brown was here for year 2. 2020 was King Henry's PA resistance. He rushed for 2,027 yards, becoming only the 8th player in NFL history to cross the 2,000-yard mark, along with the second ever in the Titans franchise to do it with his partner in crime, Chris Johnson. He had multiple 200-yard games and cemented himself as the most dominant player in football. King Henry and his men went 11-5 and won the AFC South, but in the playoffs, the script repeated. Hosting the Ravens in a rematch, the Titans' offense collapsed. Henry was bottled up for just 40 yards, and Baltimore got its revenge, and the Titans were once again left with heartbreak. The 2021 season was a roller coaster. In the first half of the season, Henry was on pace to have the greatest season a running back had ever had until disaster struck when he broke his foot in Week 8. Julio Jones and A.J. Brown would also suffer significant injuries throughout the regular season. Somehow, some way, Mike Vrabel motivated this team to play even harder, and they just kept winning games. The team style changed from an offensive engine that could outscore even the best teams in the league to a team that was led by its defense, particularly the front four with Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry, Harold Landry, and Bud Dupree wreaking absolute havoc. Kevin Byard, Amani Hooker, and Christian Fulton were all great in the secondary as well. Offensively, Tannehill was the game manager he needed to be, and even without Henry, the team still had a strong running game. They would claw their way all the way to the number 1 seed in the bloodbath AFC. Vrabel deservingly won Coach of the Year, and best of all, King Henry was back for the playoffs. Nissan Stadium was the loudest it ever was when Henry's name was announced in return in the division game versus the Bengals, which is an organization that has a fair reputation of its own. The defense sacked Joe Burrow 9 times, but it was all in vain. Ryan Tannehill threw 3 costly interceptions, including one in the final minute that set up Cincinnati's game-winning field goal. The Titans' best shot at a Super Bowl in 2 decades ended in crushing disappointment. This one here was a knife to the heart. But after the crushing playoff loss to Cincinnati in 2021, the Titans still entered 2022 with one of the most talented rosters in the AFC, or so it seemed. but beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. The breaking point came on draft night in a shocking move that would set the franchise back years. Tennessee traded A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles. I was stunned. The fans were stunned. Brown was supposed to be the future, the perfect complement to King Henry. Instead, he was gone over a contract dispute that felt self-inflicted. The very next season, Brown lit up the Titans for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns, celebrating every single catch to remind the front office what they had thrown away. Meanwhile, the 2022 Titans unraveled. Injuries decimated the roster. Tannehill, Henry, Jeffrey Simmons all missed time. The team that started 7-3 collapsed, losing 7 straight to finish the season 7-10. And to make matters worse, their playoff hopes ended in the final Week 18 game when a Josh Dobbs fumble return for a touchdown sealed a loss to the Jags. In the span of 2 months, the Titans went from division leaders to afterthoughts. The fallout was very swift. John Robinson was beheaded, as deserved, the architect of both the Titans' resurgence and their most infamous mistakes. The Brown trade was the final straw. 2023 was a season of transition and frustration. The offensive line was an absolute disaster. The passing game was non-existent. And Derrick Henry, who was once unstoppable, while still elite, looked mortal for the first time. Will Levis flashed potential, but it was too little too late. The Titans finished 6-11, their worst season since 2015. The lone bright spot was Week 18. Derrick Henry, playing in what everyone knew would be his final game as a Titan, ran for 150 yards in a vintage performance as the clock ran out. Henry walked off the field to a standing ovation in Nashville, tears in his eyes. The King had given everything he had to the franchise. But just like so many Titans legends before him, he would leave without a ring. With their king gone, this organization appears to just be in a clueless chaos at all times. Not even going to talk about Will Levis. And while Cam Ward looks promising early on this season, it appears that Brian Callahan is going to ruin him and is the worst coach on the face of the planet. The A.J. Brown trade, the collapse of 2022, the wasted years of Derrick Henry, it's all part of the cycle for Tennessee. Every single time this team seems close to anything special, they find a way to get in their own way. Just like the Oilers before them, just like the Dyson stretch in the Super Bowl, it always ends the same, one step short. The Derrick Henry era was unforgettable, but it will forever be remembered as another chapter in the 1 yard short experience. Thank you guys for watching that video. This is my first time actually making a documentary style video like this, so if you like it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Let me know if you want to see more of something like this and recommendations on what to do next. Anyways, I don't really know how this is going to do, but if you're here, you must have enjoyed it, so hey, drop a sub.